Well, hey, everybody. It is great to be here. I realize my whole name isn't on the screen. So I am Dr. Angela Kingdon. I am from the Autistic Culture Institute. We publish, I was going to say we publish the Autistic Culture podcast. We do, but we actually host the Autistic Culture Podcast Network. So we are currently at 9 podcasts in the network. And if you are a podcaster or ever wanted one, come track us down. We also do therapeutic writing for autistic people, and we publish an anthology called Neurodivergent Narratives. So if you're a writer, come check us out for that. And we do a writing podcast as well. And our goal is to build the first autistic museum. So that the Autistic Culture Institute is going to be a physical place. Right now, it is a virtual place that we are building. We have our first pop-up Autistic Culture Museum this summer in Bristol in the UK on World Autism Pride Day, June 18th. And we are working on grant funding and donations to open up an actual autistic museum. And the presentation that I am about to make about autistic culture actually started with a lot of that grant funding. So doing the academic and source-based work to identify what actually do we mean when we say autistic culture. So I'm going to share some of that work with you. It is also in a book that is coming out on Bloomsbury Press called Autistic Culture, Celebrating the Values, Norms, Traditions, and Creative Expression of Autistic People. So more about that to come, but I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint. Now, this is a high-level overview. If you want sources on anything or want a deep dive on anything, I am super happy to do that. And I'm also going to share with you a way to become an early reader of the book if you want to get really nerdy with me. But we're going to go high level. I'm going to start with a little fun quiz. And you can use your chat, or you could just answer in your mind as I say this. But I'm going to show you a culture. I'm going to show you some pictures, and you are going to tell me who this culture is. And like I said, you don't have to unmute. Just type it in the chat or say it in your head. Here's the first one. Can you identify this culture with the clues provided? It's like an escape room. Yes. So usually when I am in a live event, people very quickly see this is Irish culture. It's not Bono, little Irish dancers. We got it. Rugby, whiskey. We're good. How about this one? Also, people usually get this one really quickly. And did you get it? It is, of course, Italian culture. I'm Italian American. We love a little pasta. This one's a little harder because most of the audiences I speak to are Western, but even still, usually by now, within milliseconds, people know geishas, sushi. I got you. That's Japanese culture. Why do we know that? Why can we look at a couple bitmappy pictures and instantly know a culture? So culture is simply the shared values, traditions, language, and experience that bind a group together. And in binding that group together, it helps make sense of your identity and find community. My little example here is I'm Italian American. I grew up in New Haven. By the way, if the question is Sally's or Pepe's, the answer all smart people know is modern. So to my New Haven brethren, my parents met at Modern Beats and on State Street. And I grew up in New Haven, but anywhere I go in the world, as soon as I meet someone who I say I'm from New Haven and they say Sally's or Pepe's, I am connected by New Haven culture. If I say I'm Italian American, I am connected by pasta and cannoli and dancing the tarantella. We have all these shared things that connect us. Now, might we also have fibromyalgia or stomach cancer or hypothyroid? Sure, but we aren't talking about our medical conditions. We're talking about pizza. So, or talking with our hands, or we're talking about our favorite songs growing up. That's amore. We're not talking about our medical needs, usually right off the bat. That's not what is connecting us. we're connected through our culture. And in that culture, knowing we have a community and a safe space. We were talking just before we officially started. Dawn and I were talking about how there are so few safe spaces for autistic people. I think part of why there are so few safe spaces is that we currently view autism primarily as a medical condition. We don't view it primarily, or for many people, even at all, as a culture. So I'm not saying get rid of the fact that autistic people, just like Italian American people, have medical conditions. I'm saying let us address those even better because the people in that culture have safety and community. And it's not just cultures like nationalities like Italian American or Japanese or Irish. We know that culture extends far beyond countries. I can make our quiz a little bit more challenging. So here we are again. If you're new here, I'm going to show you some pictures. You get to type into chat, what culture is this? I usually get a couple here. You could take a second and get this one in the chat. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? I went for punk culture. Sometimes people shout out counterculture, something like that, but punk culture. Can you do this one just as fast? Yeah. We got queer culture, gay culture, LGBT culture. You can see it right away, right? Okay. I'm going to up the ante. This is the hardest one. And this is actually the philosophical and academic basis behind a lot of my research. Can you get this culture? And this is the most important one for autistic people. This, of course, is deaf culture, or big D deaf culture. So deaf people have a medical, many deaf people, not even all deaf people, have a medical hearing condition, but that is separate from the belonging and community that come from being a part of deaf culture, which extends way beyond hearing. There are many aspects of deaf culture that don't have anything to do with hearing, but with values and norms and traditions, and then creative expressions. One of my favorite creative expressions from deaf culture to talk about is an amazing deaf man named Vint Cerf. Anyone know who Vint Cerf is? It's spelled C-E-R-F. Vint Cerf was deaf, as was his wife. He was working on a little project called DARPA, called the Internet. And he was working at DARPA on the Internet. And sometimes he needed to know if his wife needed him to stop for milk on the way home. But of course, he couldn't call her because he was deaf and she was deaf. And so he used this Internet protocol to send a text-based message to her. We now call those text-based messages emails. And they are a huge part of deaf culture. Much of the technology we use, pagers, automated transcription, a lot of our technology advances came from deaf people who were just trying to find out if they needed to bring milk home to their wife. So I have looked at, there's a lot of research on the effects of deaf people's mental health and well-being who were a part of deaf culture, meaning in some cases they came from a deaf family that knew they were deaf and were proud to be deaf, versus people who maybe had acquired deafness because of scarlet fever or something, and their family wanted them to not be deaf because they had broken ears and wanted them fixed, and how the mental health outcomes and the rates of suicide change when deaf culture is introduced. It doesn't make people not deaf, but it brings the community together, and by providing psychological safety, the mental health outcomes are even better. And that is why we started the Autistic Culture Institute. What do you see that you love in this picture? Drop in the chat anything that stands out to you in my little representations of autistic culture, and also what's missing. What would you have in these pictures? We've got Pokemon, we've got Magic the Gathering, we've got buttered noodles, we've got Star Trek, of course. No autistic culture would be complete without it. Pub quiz, dinosaur love, train love, all this stuff. If anyone at all in the world sees an image like this, I want them to be able to shout out that's autistic culture as fast as you could shout out, at the very least, deaf culture. Because I know most of you got that when I said, what culture is this? But most people currently, when they see this picture, the first thing they would say would not be autistic culture. They would not get it. And that is the mission of the Institute, is global cultural literacy on what autistic values, norms, traditions, and creative expression look like. My goal with this, and I would love your help in this, in the discussion, any advice here offline, I'll get you my email address at the end. My goal is for this, especially right now with what we are facing in the government in the US, but frankly here in the UK where I live as well, is for the idea of an autistic culture to be something that unites us. So no matter what needs any autistic person has, no matter what challenges any caregiver of an autistic person or person who loves an autistic person has, all of us can celebrate autistic culture and come together with that. So, I grew up with a family, an Italian-American family that was very divided, because half of my family was from Tuscany and the other half was from Sicily. And if you're Italian-American, you will understand what a divided family I lived under. And there was still debates in my family about, whether Mussolini was a good guy and whether Italy should or shouldn't be divided. But we all came together over lasagna and cannolis and pasta. There were cultural connector and Frank Sinatra. Like, there were cultural connectors, and Sophia Loren, rest in peace, she just died recently. There were cultural connectors that brought us together. And that, more than anything right now, is what I think can help bring more safety to autistic people who, at all needs levels, have their lives at risk now for various reasons, because of treatment, because of cures, because of eugenics, because of politics. I think where we can find safety is in what unites us. That doesn't mean we don't fight for the rights of all autistic people. That's not what I'm saying, but I think we need more connectors. So with that, I am going to give you a rundown tonight of the 10 pillars of autistic culture. As I was presenting the draft of my book to my editor last week, she said to me, people are going to argue with these pillars. They're going to say that one should be in there or this one shouldn't be in there. And I was like, that would be a dream come true for me. So if you agree with these, that's great. If you think they're terrible, that's even better. Write your own book. If you were to go to Amazon right now and search any of those 6 cultures I showed you, if you searched Italian American culture, deaf culture, gay culture, queer culture, I really challenge you to do this right now. You will find 20 pages, which I believe is the maximum, of replies, of options, of search results in Amazon for any one of those cultures. When you search autistic culture, you find 3 books from me and 1 book from some other person. You all need to get books out there. If you need my help, let me know. It is wild that every other culture, the earliest documentation of the phrase autistic culture I can find is from 1998 at the Autscape that was in Pennsylvania at the time. And there are no books out there on autistic culture. There are books that capture autistic culture, lots of them, every book on Star Wars, for instance, but not called autistic culture and what that is. So yes, disagree away, but here is my take. So we're going to start right here at pillar number 1. Now I need to tell you, there is lots of crossover with these 10 pillars, and in the book and in my podcast episodes, you can find Autistic Culture 101, and I go through lots of examples. But I start with bottom-up processing because it is my diagnostic method. When I meet a person, one of the first things I assess is, are they a top-down processor or a bottom-up processor? That is going to change how I interact with them. If they are a bottom-up processor, I default immediately to assuming they are a member of autistic culture, whether they know it or not. So if you are not familiar with this term, because we have heightened sensory, so we process 42% more sensory input while we are at rest. So imagine if we're in a 5-alarm fire, we're processing probably 1,100 times more information. But if we are just in a quiet room with an eye mask on, we are processing 42% more incoming information from various sources that we are and are not conscious of, right? When we reach a conclusion, it is because we have gathered data, whether we know this or not. We have observed patterns, we have built meaning, and then because we have the evidence first, and then we draw a conclusion, we are really confident. Some people don't like our confidence. We're so confident, but we have so much evidence. And then when we are confronted by somebody who disagrees, we are like, oh, this is no problem. This person disagrees. I'm so curious about what other facts they have that I don't have. I must have missed some of the details. And so we ask, alas, what information do you have that led you to your conclusion? And we and shocked and frightened by the fact that they do not appear to have any information, but instead they are top-down processors. Top-down processors, as wild as it sounds if you are not autistic, they actually start with the conclusion. They don't even need to ever find information if it just feels good, because they're not getting as much data, so they're not experiencing that cognitive dissonance or that need to have the right answer. The answer could be that people around me believe this, so it must be true. It feels right to me. It makes me feel part of society, makes me feel like I won't be sent to live in the woods. I like it. I'm going to go with it. So if we don't understand how they reach that conclusion, we will then ask some clarifying questions, like, how did you reach that conclusion? And then we are seen as attacking them, because in their culture, you would never ask those clarifying questions because it's very obvious. I believe it because I believe it, because I decided it, because I want it. And so thus the double empathy problem begins, but so does some of the world's best creative expressions. This is how we get Apple Computer. This is how we get Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. This is how so much autistic creation happens, because of bottom-up processing and that frustration of like, what is everyone else doing then? That what? But test this if you have neurotypicals in your life. It's really fun how they reach conclusions. They genuinely do not need data. Okay, pillar number 2 is rhythmic communicating. So a lot of people that are looking at autism from a more medical lens, which is really hard, but I try not to, they will be talking here about Gestalt language processing. That is a piece of this, but for me, this is about how we use language and sounds and rhythm in order to communicate and express ourselves. So not just words or maybe even like facial expressions, but we are actually using our breath patterns, our echolalia, repeating words inside our head, outside of our head, patterns with sounds through stimming. I was interviewing somebody yesterday for the Late Diagnosis Club who says for her, when she's not stimming, it feels like her heartbeat has stopped. So she has muted interoception. And so as she's stimming, that's how she knows she's here. That is a way of communicating that is very unique to our culture and leads to a lot of great cultural contributions. My favorite one to share here is the artist Questlove. And so I go into that in detail. He uses rhythmic communicating, specifically autistic rhythmic communication, as both a drummer and a DJ and musician in general, in some beautiful ways. So pillar number 3, this butts pretty closely up to neuroqueering. If you understand the concept of neuroqueering, I call it norm challenging. It's not just about gender, it's really about shoulds in general, and how courage is one of the core values in our culture. If a dress is more comfortable to you and you happen to be born male, and even if you feel male, but you would like to wear a dress, in our culture, we're like, but the dress is more comfortable. I would not wear it. Why? And if something wasn't comfortable about it, I might make a dress that's like a dude dress that's comfortable for me. So you'll see that a lot with the way we express ourselves through hair or fashion, as well as things like gender or pronouns. In our culture, just because it's done that way doesn't mean that's how we do it. And I think that is something we should have a lot of pride in. It's led to a lot of innovation, and it is probably what led to the transition from being to stone tools, to the way that we hunt, from being foragers to actually being able to hunt big game. Was like, wait, why are we doing? Hold on, I got a whole better plan. This is what we're going to do. Pillar 4, again, these are all interconnected, because when you have bottom-up processing and rhythmic communicating and norm challenging, you lead to one of the greatest contributions that our culture can be very proud of, which is world building. World building is when we connect things, whether it is an understanding of mythology or communities. The example I use here, I have 2 of them that I go back to, but I'll give you Taylor Swift and the Taylor Swift universe, the way she connects characters across songs and events, and her Easter eggs and her fandom. You can also look at how Satoshi Tajiri does it with the Pokemon community and that world, and obviously Star Wars, all the Comic-Cons. The actor, I think she's an actor, comedian Ashley Story from the Hulu series Dinosaur. They wrote their show. She's autistic. They wrote the show based on the idea that it was going to be filled with glass slipper jokes, that maybe only one person, the joke would only fit 1 foot. But we are going to create an entire world of people who understand and connect with these glass slipper jokes. And again, that is how our worlds connect. The next one is pattern matching. I really love pattern matching in the way autistic people do it, because we are making connections across categories. And, this is a periodic table, I think, is what's over there. But we connect, we'll then layer different systems on top of each other and see how those connect. In almost every autistic group I've been, people will discover something like the Myers-Briggs personality test, and they'll be like, oh my God, I figured it out. Autistic people must all be, pick the letter combination, INFPs. Everybody share your Myers-Briggs. I'm going to crack the code. And then they realize, no. If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. But our brains are heat-seeking missiles for what's the pattern. I know there must be a pattern. So if you show us systems, we will find a way to match those patterns, even when they are unconnected. Game-changing innovation. This pillar was originally called game-changing, but this is where I have to talk about Sir Isaac Newton. Obviously, long before the word autism existed, Sir Isaac Newton is one of the key figures in our culture. And I don't know if you really understand the story of calculus, but it is wild. So I know nothing about math, and I have dyscalculia. So I'm going to try and tell this to you. And if you're a math person, you can correct me when we get to Q&A in a couple seconds. But here's the deal. Geometry is talking about like like a cube or a cone or a cylinder. And then algebra is talking about lines. So we can measure lines, we can measure volume. At this point, algebra and geometry exist. But no one has a way to measure things moving. So if we're like pouring out a cylinder of water, how do we measure that as it's moving? And there's a pandemic. I forget which one, the Black Plague, maybe. I don't know, some pandemic. And Isaac Newton gets sent home and he's like, I'm going to go home. And for my pandemic, I'm going to figure out how we can measure things in motion. Like, I'm really good at algebra. I'm really good at geometry. I'm going to figure this out. Anyway, he figures it out and he creates this whole new notation. And it's kind of like he's making up words and language, like so many of us do, it's like very common for autistic people to make up our own language because the one that's here is insufficient. So he's writing this notation and he shows the other math people in the Royal Academy of Maths and Sciences. And they're like, yeah, I don't know what this notation is. It's possible you have a mental illness. Like, just like, we don't get it. So then he reinvents calculus a second time by figuring out how to notate calculus using geometry and algebra. So people won't think he's crazy. So he writes this whole book explaining calculus only using geometry and algebra. And then at the very end of the book, he's like, now that you understand it, here's actual calculus using the notation I was using before. So he actually invents calculus not once for himself. He's like, oh, I get how we can do this, but twice because he has to explain it to the people who have not done the pattern matching. That is actually how we get calculus. It is a game-changing innovation that leads to bridges and boats and so many things that we wouldn't have without calculus. But he does it because he is able to do not just out of the box thinking, but then he can back translate it. How many of us have had the game-changing innovation, but don't have the language to explain it? I know there are people here on this call who have figured out something about the world and you just can't get people to see it. That is like, we have so much game-changing innovation. And if we could celebrate this in our culture for the people, even though they're like old dead white English guys, if we can celebrate the places where we were able to change the game with our innovation, we would be able to help language for everyone that's autistic are game-changing innovations, because we wouldn't be seen as crazy, right? Or the boy who cried wolf, or, the emperor's new clothes. If we can say, oh, this is what we do, we change the game. Boldly creating is the connection between our stims and our spins. So once we find a special interest or a spin, we are able to turn that into art and often turn it into a stim or something that is self-soothing. So a great example here is knitting. A lot of great needle workers, but drummers, many other specifically STEMmy activities are also special interest and the way we create new art forms. Pillar 8 is predictably comforting. So this is the part of our community that relies on same food, same schedules, same clothes. Think of Steve Jobs in his what was it called? Mock turtleneck, the black turtleneck and the jeans. If we are able to create a physical repetition that we know what we will get, it frees up bandwidth for, number one, all the extrasensory stuff we're taking in, and then number two, game-changing innovation. Encouraging and celebrating the predictably comfortable in our community will create more safety and more innovation and communication. So we have to point out when we see the predictably comforting pillar of autistic culture, when we see that kid in our family eating chicken nuggets again. My son, I think for 10 years, ate every single meal was macaroni and cheese. And I can't tell you how often he was made fun of. It came up this Christmas. People were like, oh, is Jesse still just eating mac and cheese? No, you know why we do that? It's because we know the cost of mixing up our food or our clothes is we might not have the relationships or the thoughts or the brain space for our special interests. So predictably comforting environments, routines, and roots is a great part of our culture to celebrate. Pillar number 9 is justice seeking, being advocates and deeply caring about others. Our hyper empathy, it is connected to our bottom up processing and our pattern matching. These things are not disconnected. That is why we are justice seekers, because we are also bottom up processors. You can't separate our special interests, because I'm probably not going to be able to be a justice seeker in something that isn't my special interest. Like I'm sure there's, I don't know, an endangered shark in Indonesia that's just like, I'm not aware of it. It's not my special interest. So that's not going to be an area of justice sensitivity for me. But if that's my special interest and I'm a bottom up processor, there's almost no way for me to seek justice. So that if there is something you care about, find the autistic people that care about it, and justice will be sought. We will go and find it. And so this is connected to pillar number 10, passionate super fanning. That is when our special interests actually become, they light up the same brain centers in our brains as when you would see your mother. So if they show autistic people pictures of their special interest and they look at the area of the brain that's lit up, it is when neurotypical people and also autistic people, but when people they love show up. If you show people that are not autistic something they like, you know, so maybe it's Star Trek, they're like, oh yeah, I like that show. It does not light up the center of their brain that is the friends and family. This is my safe place. These are my people. So celebrating our passionate super fanning and acknowledging friends, family, and fictional characters. They are all equally important to us. Yes, if a show is canceled that we were a super fan of, that requires grief. You would not tell someone not to grieve over their mother and write poems about it and process it. So the Trekkies, the Deadheads, the Swifties, the Comic-Cons, those are our people. And again, we want to celebrate that. Other people like Star Trek, other people like Grateful Dead, but it's the super fans where we can really celebrate autistic culture. So I want you to leave here today knowing autistic culture is your birthright, but it is also your responsibility to claim it. You must be able to see autistic culture and know it. I grew up being taught all the Italian things and how to pick them out and how to pronounce them and how to be proud about them. Right. And so this is completely separate from the medical model. Like that's a great thing to, I don't know, other people can deal with that. That's not what I'm talking about here. I want you to be able to see and celebrate our culture and to point it out over a family meal and be like, how great, he's having mac and cheese again. That's fantastic. He must know that's a really regulating food for him. And to be somebody who can represent that safe space. So if you want to learn more about the autistic culture pillars, you can take this quiz. It will walk you through how those pillars are connected to you, and you can see if you are a member of our culture. I also think it's maybe bit.ly/autistic culture quiz, but you can also scan that if you've got a phone handy where you are, or take a picture of it and scan it from someone else's phone. I should have put the URL up there, but I guess I wasn't being organized enough. I think you can also go to autisticculturepodcast.com, and somewhere on the top it'll say take the quiz. I mentioned earlier before we go to questions, I just submitted my book on all of this, which goes much deeper. And I am looking for 5 sensitivity readers, particularly looking for ideas and suggestions for how to make sure this is a uniting force, And if I said anything that might make people not feel included, I'm looking for anything that might be problematic or other examples that I might be able to include. I am also happy to talk to anyone here about anything. So you are all welcome to email me. But if you have time over the next 2 weeks and were interested in any of this, drop me an email and say you want to be one of my sensitivity readers, and you will get an early copy. I will warn you, it is 250 pages. So, you know, it is a little bit meaty. So you got to have a little time or be hyperlexic or just be interested in this. But if that sounds like you and you might be able to help, just drop me an email at angela@kingdonhouse.com. I think that's it, but let's see. Yes, that was my last slide. I am going to stop screen sharing. Happy to take questions and just connect with you guys. What resonated with you? What sounded familiar? Did anything sound new? Did anything sound old and boring? If it's old and boring, that's also fine too, because it's not documented. So even if you knew all this, I'm curious to hear that, because this is documented nowhere. I don't know why we're so good at documenting things. And if it all sounded new, I'm also interested in that too. So I'm going to check the chat, but Dawn or maybe Roger, if you're around, does anyone have a question?
Yeah, that was brilliant. You just nailed it, Angela. Um, Wonderful, really wonderful. Some people, before I forget, were asking if you might be willing to share your slides on our social media platforms. I know that, they could be proprietary. I didn't want to assume.
No, happy to share.
Very cool. Something you said early on um, was reminding, I've said this a lot lately, that neuronormative culture seems to be founded, frankly, on violence. And so when people meet each other and begin to communicate, all of these pieces of etiquette and not quote oversharing and all that is because they assume they're out to hurt each other basically. And I feel like autistic people are instantly wanting to become more than the sum of the parts, right? Like you said, here's what I know, what do you know, how can we know more together? And I just think that's such a beautiful and wonderful part of our culture. So
Right? I love that about us. I think we also, I don't have the science on this, but I suspect we also die sooner though. I mean, we do die sooner. Our average lifespan is 58, but just thinking culturally, because obviously people with autistic traits have been around, we know, for at least 30,000 years that we can document. But I think neuronormative culture, it is based on, I wouldn't just say violence, but the presumption of violence, right? Like at some point, there's going to be a territory grab here. At some point, there's going to be a resource conflict. I have to create the possibility that this person will protect me. And therefore, I can't really be honest or bottom up processing. I have to like what they like, but they have to like what I like, but they don't know what I like, and I don't know what they like. And it's not even safe for them to know what they like. So we have to all look for something average so we can all like it together to stay safe. And meanwhile, we're over here like, wait, you like that? That's stupid. And then we're dead. So that's the downside. So I think it is amazing for moving, essential, not just amazing, but for moving cultures forward. The biodiversity, the neurodiversity model is really essential to moving the culture forward. But if your number one goal was staying alive, it's probably not like the best neurotype to have for maximizing lifespan. Yeah, bottom up processing is like a huge asset and then a huge liability.
that's an amazing way to explain that. I wish I had that written down so I could just hand it out to people. That was really great.
Well,
Um,
I'm hoping you could just hand them my book soon. That's the
yeah,
goal.
that,
And
that
I'm
would be
hoping
great.
this is the book that launches 1,000 books telling the stories of autistic culture, because I think autistic cultural literacy is the thing that will save lives. If we realize, oh, if we kill all these people, we are going to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Like, you guys
Yes,
need us. You can't
I
just exploit us for our labor.
I've made the suggestion that we go on strike and just see how far they get. Anyway, I don't want to take up all the time. Reminding people, please raise your hand either in the frame or use the hand raising icon. If you're not actively speaking, please keep yourself on mute for those of us with auditory processing challenges. Um, I know everything is connected, and I love the way we think, but maybe for those of us who are auditorily challenged and our presenter, maybe one idea at a time. Let's all make sure people get their turn and all that jazz. So yeah, I'll step back and let that happen.
You're up.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So, on the note of autistic culture and how we believe, and I do agree, that getting people together through autistic culture can save our lives, I think the next big step is dealing with the DSM, dealing with ABA, dealing with the control of autistic people's fates by people who are not autistic and by degrees in us. So, I did a sociolinguistics paper where I took all the terms describing autism when you diagnose it, and I intended to do like, here's the good stuff and here's the bad stuff, and like how much more bad stuff they say, but it's actually all bad stuff. It's poorly. I've got my list up here: absence, adverse, deficit, difficulty, disturbances, extreme, failure, fixated, impairment, unusual. It's all this stuff. So, like, I do believe in the force of autistic culture to unify us, and it's super important work. My question is, how do we go on from there to deal with the next one? Because I'm queer as well, and we actually had to storm the APA office in the 70s to get them to stop writing gay as the DSM.
Yeah, let's storm the APA office. I made this presentation to the APA, and I had two different APA publishers ask me to come in and work with their authors. And those two people were both autistic. Well, one of them told me they were autistic, and the other one said they had an autistic son, and I realized they were autistic. I don't know if they know yet. And then they followed up with me. So I was a little conflicted about whether I wanted to work for them, because I feel like a lot of times people will bring you in and then not really, but there are people there that do want to. I just think they're part of a system. Okay, here's where I'm at. It's a little anarchistic and maybe not very realistic. I'm like, burn down the whole DSM.
I'm right there with you.
Fix it. I'm like,
burn it down.
I'm right there with you. As a queer woman, I've had to fight the DSM my whole life.
Right? We had most of human history. We've had autistic people and autistic culture without even the word. And if you talk about the Bleuler in 1911, the eugenicist who came up with the word autism, wasn't even talking about who we are, was talking about something else completely. So maybe you can argue since the 40s, like maybe, but like most of human history, we have had autistic people without this word. So a lot of people, including me, will say self-diagnosis is valid, and that is like a form of resistance. I don't even think self-diagnosis is valid. I think like no diagnosis. I don't need to be diagnosed as Italian American.
I think undiagnosis
is valid. Like it's just my identity. I don't need to, it's not a diagnosis, it's an identity.
I don't need to be diagnosed as bisexual by straight people who want to check how much my wrist does this when I talk. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. So I don't know. I think the DSM, and having done a psychology degree in the United Kingdom, I went to the University of Kent because Damian Milton is there. And none of my psychology teachers in the psychology department, where Damian Milton is a professor, had read the double empathy problem paper, nor were they willing to. We're not willing to upon request. So I don't know what the psychology people are doing, but it's not helping us. So I'm like out. I did not agree to consult to the APA. Like I made my little speech for their publishing conference, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm out. I don't think they can be saved.
Well, I emailed you. I said, let's keep the conversation going.
I love it. I love to be in contact and I'd love to read your work too. I think you're next if I'm understanding how hands work.
Oh, I thought someone else had their hand raised before me.
So did I, but I don't see.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they put their hand down. I got boring. They're like, oh, that lady's going to swear if I talk to her. Sorry if I'm swearing, everybody.
Oh, I don't fucking care.
Great. Hey, no.
I saw a woman on Facebook who had talked about autism and she got plagiarized by Princeton and she complained to Princeton and they said, oh no, we just came up with it independently. And I was wondering, I forget her name, but are you aware of the autistic woman who's fighting with the Ivy League people who aren't listening to her?
No, but sounds familiar.
Okay. Yeah, I
love to take our work. They enjoy that. So, yeah.
I'll try to find the link and email it to you. I was wondering, how do I support someone who's being plagiarized? I don't know.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I have really, really strong, violent justice seeking.
The 4 phenotypes. Yes, the chat. Yes, she knows what I'm talking about.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
The 4 phenotypes. I thought that was not my favorite piece of research of the last year. But do you know that wildly popular, multi-million-dollar best-selling book, Let Them?
I'm not a fan, but yes, I'm aware.
Completely
Plagiarized. And the woman who it was stolen from is almost certainly neurodivergent. I think she identifies as ADHD, but as we all know, yeah, we have good ideas and people like to take them.
I feel like
they don't like us.
They would give us credit if they liked us, but we're just going to challenge them if they give us credit, or we're going to tell them they gave us credit in the wrong way. So, yeah.
Hardcore. I feel like
realize that 4 phenotypes research
was plagiarized, though, but I'm not surprised.
I feel like my words have less impact than regular people words. When I was little, I realized my siblings were dismissive of me, and I thought, oh, if I tell the truth 100% of the time, people will take me seriously, and it didn't work. And I don't know why. I'll state something clearly, and people don't get it or are dismissive. And why does the words of someone with autism have less weight than someone who's, I don't know, white college-educated man?
I mean, yes, this is true. I mean, like white supremacy is real and the patriarchy is real and all that stuff. But also, if you were to go to Japan and you were to offer them advice on, I don't know, how to make sushi, your ideas probably would not be accepted because you're from another culture. Even if you knew a lot about making sushi, even if you found great knives, whatever, in New Haven, Connecticut, it's just you're not from our culture. And so, I mean, I don't have a lot of respect even for non-New Haven pizza. Not even just if it's not Italian. It's we have a pizza place here in England that's Serbian people. I love the Serbian people, but don't make my pizza. So we are not from their culture. Many of us grew up feeling like we were aliens, and we were right. We are not from their culture. And if you know you're not from their culture, then you don't feel like they should accept your ideas. I think we're entitled. I think we think people should understand us because we're using bottom-up processing and facts. But in their culture, bottom-up processing and pattern matching are not valued because they get you killed. It's very dangerous. So if you use top-down processing and you just say random inaccurate things that line up with the person who has the most power, you get the better job. You get more resources. You live longer. Find the person in power and support them. That's the reason you like the idea. So you are a problem. You are putting people at risk. You are making people unsafe in their culture, which is where we all live. So my advice is spend as much time as you can in Autistica.
We don't
have a physical place. That's why I'm trying to create the Institute. We don't have a physical place, but create them. A lot of people have families that have done the work that when you're in your home, you are in Autistica. Find spaces like that, because in our culture, you won't be dismissed for your bottom-up processing.
Another thing I've noticed is no matter what I say, it doesn't matter. It needs to be someone outside of the disenfranchised person. I went to school for engineering, and if I complained that a professor was treating me differently because I'm female, I would get nowhere. But if a boy pointed out, hey, you didn't answer this question, and then Mike asked it 10 minutes later, and you explain it, why'd you ignore it? It had a huge impact. So when I see a child not being taken seriously or someone of a different color not being taken seriously, I speak up because I try to use my white woman privilege, because the person being marginalized is never heard in my experience.
Right.
I just want to jump in. I don't want to derail that conversation, but before we lose track of it, in the chat, there was a question about the split, like the Aspie split. I find that very damaging. I think people are basically trying to find safety there that is going to disappoint them ultimately. But if you could speak to that a little, Angela.
Yeah, I'm looking for the question though. What was here, I understand this is likely beyond the scope of the discussion, but I'm curious if you have anything to share on the darker topic of Aspie supremacy ideology. I do. A lot. That's actually a big part of why I was asking for more sensitivity readers. The thing is, we do, if you just looked at words published, the people who either currently or previously identified as having Asperger's syndrome have a lot of the published words. And there's lots of reasons for that, but hyperlexia and hypergraphia being so prevalent in those populations is true. And this is a problem for our culture. However, if you look in Italian American culture, the rich white guys have the most published words. Like within any culture, there are people with more privilege. So yes, the rich white male identifying people with the most language are going to say the most things and often talk over others. And we need to all be active and vigilant about that and not do the work of white supremacy and the patriarchy. And obviously, the people who need to be the most vigilant is the people closest to the most power. So the closer you are to, white male with speaking that can approximate neuronormative norms, like you have to do the most work. And I think, as said and before her, we have to use the privileges that we do have to represent that. So I'm really focused on getting as many voices into the book as I can. And is that why there's not more published? Because all of the examples in my book are based on the documentation I can find. The documentation I can find is largely white male. There's probably somebody as awesome as Sir Isaac Newton. I just don't know about them because, I write a lot about Emily Dickinson in the book, but it is hard to find examples, especially as an English speaking woman from the Western world. So I think we have to fight against it, but also look for ways to unite. I think, the most dangerous thing happening out there is the profound autism fight, and they will win. The money is there. The next DSM is going to be worse than the last one. So boycott it all. So incomplete answer, but I think if we can all embrace autistic culture, it helps everyone. If only the Aspie supremacists embrace it, then it's a failed project. So help. Yeah, it's definitely challenging. you're up.
Awesome presentation. I love how colorful and amazing your slides are. I could never create something like that. But you know, I have the condition. I'm autistic, and when I got diagnosed, they said I would have used to be called Asperger's, and originally.
Me too, by the way. I was diagnosed.
Yeah, originally I did like that term better, but actually it's contact with this group and seeing how supportive and inclusive this group is that made me, now I refer to myself as autistic. I may mention that in the past, what I was diagnosed as may have been caused called Asperger's, but then I say now it's just all autistic. And at first, you know, I didn't like that because I felt like it was losing part of my identity and like being lumped in. But now I've changed my mind. It's mostly due to contact with people in here, and actually going to have a speaker from there come up in March there. But I think if we look at it as a marketing problem and not just an academic problem, that may shine light on it.
I love that. I love that. I do think specifically with the Asperger's thing, because I went through a very similar journey to you. That is a marketing problem, but I do think there is also an identity thing there.
Yeah.
That, you know, if we look at it, it's like some of it is just like somebody gave me this name. It took me a while to get used to it. Now I'm used to it. I don't want another name.
Yeah, and autistic people don't like change. So if you all of a sudden you've been Asperger's for a long time, it's like, hey, you just stole that from me, and that's a reaction happen in their brains. And kind of flip that on its head, saying, no, you're part of a bigger family, and you have more support now, and we can all work together to get things done rather than being separate.
Right. And we do, yeah, I think that's really key. That's why I'm like words are insufficient anyway. Like Asperger's is the wrong word for lots and lots of reasons, but autism is also the wrong word for lots and lots
of reasons.
Like none of these are the word. And so, you know, most of history, we didn't have that word. Maybe we were called imbeciles. We were called eccentric. Like there's been lots of words, but we haven't like claimed our own word. And I do think that's where the marketing.
Yeah, I think we're all still trying to figure out, and that's where I think we need more autistic marketers. Actually, a buddy of mine's autistic. He has a marketing company. I mean, we've had this discussion before about how the academic world tends to be and the activism world tends to be horrible at marketing.
Yeah. This is a non sequitur, but I would like to just point out as a little example of what I think we can all do to celebrate autistic culture. And you can think of movements like I mentioned, like gay culture and how important gay pride was to the liberation of gay people. I would like to point out you have one of the most amazing autistic accents I have ever heard. And I like absolutely love your voice. It is.
Well, thank you. We can chat sometime if you want to hear that voice more, because your work's very interesting. You might be interested in the work I do. But you know, a dear friend from Australia said that too. Like, you have a very interesting and unique American accent. So
no,
I don't want to take away from other people's
accent.
Thanks.
And like my husband's British, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've been, I don't know, at a restaurant in America or something, and whoever is the server will just be like titillated by his British accent. And that is how I'm like sick of his voice now and all the British people I live around. But like when I hear a good autistic accent, I'm like, oh my goodness, say it again, talk for me. So like, I don't actually watch Love on the Spectrum, but James from Love on the Spectrum, his autistic accent is like just amazing. So when we will go places, like my husband will always get free shit for his accent. People will give him like t-shirts and keychains and things. They're like, oh my God, I love your accent. Can I give you a t-shirt? And I just want that to start happening to people like.
For Angela, one more question. So as someone I got diagnosed and I'm still figuring out the right language to say, and the right language may change again in 2 years. What's the correct language to refer to different types of people in the autistic community? Because like I guess maybe the term's low support needs for me, but then my best friend's son, he has to be fed through a a tube, he can barely walk, and he's like 10, 11. But then my best friend just told me he's nonverbal, but yet he's teaching everybody else in his elementary class how to code. The kid's smart as a whip.
Right. So who's the low support need?
It's one
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I don't find like the high, high, medium, low distinction, like just very informative. Like I just can't really do much with it. So it does come off as like, unless I'm trying to say I'm better than you, like, hey,
Yeah.
for the kids who are drinking air out of a straw, I'm better than them. Like, I'm not sure why I would need to say that. So I guess like my big question is like, how's autistic? So, like, I don't need like now if somebody needs to know something, like if I'm going to a dinner party, there's a very limited number of foods I eat, and you might need to know what foods that I eat so that I can participate in the meal. And I'm happy to tell you if you're inviting me to dinner, which like, yes, thank you, I will be there. So yeah, says we're all simply autists or autistic. And then if the situation is, do you need special parking? I'm super dyspraxic. And if it's in England and there's cobblestone roads, I need to be dropped off at the door because I will fall. I fall
Everywhere.
fell on my wedding.
Oh, yeah. And
Not a
maybe
day goes
it's
by I
better.
don't
Oh,
fall
sorry to
in my
interrupt.
own home.
So I don't know. Am I high support needs, low support needs? It
Depends.
a cobblestone road, or is it America? I have fewer support needs in America because I can walk in that country better than.
So,
And
yeah,
maybe
that's what I was
maybe a better way is to focus on in what ways we have disabilities and what we need to overcome those disabilities, rather than talking about autism. Talk about the things that we need help with.
Well, and this is where I go back to being Italian American.
Yeah.
like.
I do talk about being Italian American a lot. Like I love being from New Haven. I have like my family were bricklayers. I can tell you when they came over. I can tell you what street they lived on. Like, been to Savin Rock many times, up East Rock. Like that's all a big part of my culture, but it's not connected to my sport needs. Like sometimes I still need, special food, or I need to be able to
Go into a
quiet room, and I'm Italian American, but they're not connected. It's just like
if I'm
doing something with my Italian American family and I need to wear loop earphones. I'm just an Italian American girl wearing loop earphones.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
last
I
thing
want to
decouple those things.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, without my medical treatments like TMS and the other treatments, I would be nothing or not around. So that's a disability of mine, that refractory depression. But then even when I'm doing good like now, I'll say something a little bit lighthearted, is that if I have a friend who loves fuzzy blankets and she's autistic. Now, if I'm like I am today, doing real good, if she throws that fuzzy blanket on me, my brain will break. Because of the texture, I can't take the fuzzy blanket.
can't
Too fuzzy. I'm a fuzzy autistic. Who else is a fuzzy autistic, non-fuzzy? Put that in the chat. I would like to know whether you are a fuzzy or a non-fuzzy. Yeah, it's in Club Fuzzy with me. Everything in my house is fuzzy. So we're gonna have to meet at a coffee shop, I think. I'll come to your place. Specific kinds of fuzzy, says fuzzy, but specific kind of fuzzy. I love my fuzzies. You got rules. Excellent. Anyone else have comments, questions, thoughts? I can tolerate felt. Okay. Team fuzzy. Yeah, sticky or clammy. Oh my God, not for me. There's so many things I can't touch. Many, many things can't be touched. Also, I raise children, which I want extra like credit for because they are just sticky and clammy humans for like 5 years at least. You're back in. What's up?
Okay, because I didn't see anybody else in. I don't want to take up space from anybody else.
I love it.
Okay, so I work in linguistics. I just applied for a grad program in speech language pathology where I'll be beset by neurotypical BS on all sides, I'm sure. But I wanted to talk about, I was diagnosed at years old, and a lot of us who were late diagnosed still managed to find lots of autistic culture. And you posted Spock, and I was working on a linguistics paper that autistic people who were not diagnosed use Star Trek and The Simpsons to find each other and to build community in the meantime. but I think we need a lot more work on, like, first of all, those two things they're very Western and North American. They're from the United States specifically, so like, somebody in a small community without much electricity in a different part of the world might have very different things that they used to find each other. So I'm not sure, like, I don't want to dominate there, but I do want to proceed with this line of work because I do think it's very common. A lot of us who are like diagnosed have friends whose kids are all getting the autism diagnosis now, and that's how a lot of us find out. That even without the diagnosis, we still manage to find each other. So there is some inherent cultural glue there, and I just want to observe what it is.
Yeah, I think it's the 10 pillars. I mean, for me, the answer is the 10 pillars. And like I just found, does anybody know Ado? I think her name is pronounced Ado. It's Ado. She's a Japanese J-pop star who I am 100% sure is autistic, and her fandom is super autistic. I just found her, and I'm going to add her to the book. But one of my questions, so I'm going to screen share in a second just so I can show you my table of contents. I'm trying to do an encyclopedia and of autistic culture, and then ultimately a museum where we could go into rooms that are, the Uganda room. Like we could go into different rooms of the museum and explore different expressions of autistic culture from all over the world. First of all, I need a very big research grant. So the examples that I have are the ones I know, and I don't speak Japanese and I didn't know about Ado. So like I'll add her, but also it's going to be a really big book if I include every example from every culture, from every language that I don't speak.
Well, a question from you, or for you, excuse me. I know you said you wanted to make this a physical place, and I think it should be. However, I went to game design school, and you could, with the Unity or Unreal Game Engine, build a virtual space that could be incessantly added upon and could be accessed, say, online, where people could use these if you'd ever consider.
Yeah, we are working
on virtual. We have 2 different virtual projects going.
and so yeah.
They are in progress. I do want a place for us to come together because I especially think in robot land, we need more places to be physically. But
We are
first doing an audio museum, and we are also doing a VR version of it. So, and we've got, coders and volunteers. And if you want to be involved, let us know.
Yeah, I do.
We are, somebody asked where. So I'm in Bristol in the UK. And it does feel like we're about 5-10 years ahead of the US here. I don't know, but it feels like there is a lot more funding and a lot more awareness here. I encourage you all, like if for some reason you get a chance to come to the UK or Ireland and just experience life as an autistic person here, it's not perfect, but I will say it is much more regulating here for me, for this autistic person. So I'm going to just show you guys really fast. I know people are starting to have to go, but I'm going to show you the examples in the table of contents. So this is how the table of contents is set up right now. And you can see it sort of starts here: Stone Tools, spreadsheets, Copernicus, Michelangelo, Isaac Newton, Thomas Jefferson, Tesla, Einstein. Then we go through the pillars, and then you've got more here. So there's the music chapter, Mozart. I know this is probably really super tiny. I can make it bigger. So these are the music people we have: Questlove, Eminem, Punk, Courtney Love, Freddie Mercury, Taylor Swift. Then we have literature: Emily Dickinson, Hans Christian Andersen, Sherlock Holmes, Lewis Carroll, Anne of Green Gables, Lemony Snicket, Amelia Bedelia. And then this is film and TV, is this section. And then I think I have business. Julia Child, that's a really good one. And then board games and board game designers. So that's where we are now. But like I said, like my goal is that this is the book that launches 1,000, books, VR experiences. If you want to write about it, we have definitely opportunities in the Autistic Culture Institute too. If this is your jam, we will help you get published and get the word out. And if you are interested in doing a podcast, we will help you getting that out there too. So we just want to produce media that celebrates autistic creative expression and all the things we have brought to the world, because nobody else is giving us credit. So I think we need to toot our own horns a little bit. That's my mission.
I would love to share our video library with you. I feel like we should be collaborating more because we have
I know
so
it's
much here.
always on our list to collaborate more, but definitely 2026.
Yeah, let's make it a goal.
Definitely.
We usually have a hard stop around now, but I want to be sure that everybody had a chance to say whatever they wanted to, ask questions. Some of us process slower. So
I'm just reading through the comments too before we say goodbye and they leave. I have heard about the stimming pool movie. People are talking about that. Have not seen it yet, but I've definitely been following. About Germany. Also the Netherlands is amazing. In Amsterdam, we're almost normal. It's wild. So I looked at, in my book, Hofstadter's research. Geert Hofstadter talks about the 6 dimensions of ethnic cultures. And then since he died, they added a 7th one. And episode 22 of the Autistic Culture podcast is a comparison of different countries' cultures to autistic culture. And the Netherlands, I think, is the one that came closest. There's another, it might be Iceland, but there's another Scandinavian country that also came close. But you can actually take the Hofstede quiz, and because like I'm also biased about what is autistic culture to me versus to you, and see which country you map closest to, and then go on vacation there. It's a delight.
Yeah, I kept apologizing for being too direct, and they kept looking at me confused because I have to apologize all the time here where I live. But they were just like, yeah, and it was quite refreshing.
It's
so great. Deaf culture is also very like direct and bottom up processors. There's a lot of overlaps, and there's a lot of overlaps with deafness and autism. And when I was learning sign, I just like immediately fit in the culture. And they're like, "Are you deaf?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." They're like, "Is your mom deaf?" Like, "Who's deaf?" I'm like, "No, not deaf, just autistic." Like, fit in perfectly. So yeah, what is the best way to get in touch? Definitely, I'm going to give you, this is just my personal email, which is angela@kingdonhouse.com. So reach out there. I will send you a calendar link if you prefer to do a call. I'm happy to jump on a call, or if you prefer asynchronous through writing, I'm happy to communicate that way. It's Kingdon, not Kingdom. Kingdon with an N, from the United Kingdom, but Kingdon, yes, it's a Devon last name. It is in the chat if you scroll up to Angela to everyone, angela@kingdonhouse.com. I'm terrible on Facebook because I don't want to be there, so I'm mostly not. So email is the best way until we find telepathic communication being an easier communication channel. I prefer that. Feel free.
we do a lot of that here, actually. We've been joking in the physics group that we should just not schedule meetings and see how many people show up.
I mean, it could work. We don't know.
It could work. So more people.
I love spending time with you guys. I knew I would. I wish I could have had time to read every single comment and talk to every single one of you, but I appreciate you having me here. And yeah, please check out the Autistic Culture Podcast, autisticculturepodcast.com. Contribute. Guest blogs are welcome, and anything you want to contribute to the autistic culture movement, I would love to hear about. So
would you prefer sending Roger and I the slides and material to post for you, or do you want to be in control of that?
Yeah, I will send it to you. And let me just see. I think this is wild, but I'm going to put in the chat because the presentation's on Canva. So if you want the slides right now and you happen to be here, I think that link will get you access to the slides. But I will also send you and Roger a PDF that you can post anywhere you want.
Wonderful. So. This was just so great, Angela. Yes, collaborate. We will. And of course, we'll have you back to check in, share your progress, your new ideas. Very, very exciting. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And I'll just make another plug for if you have time to write the foreword, I would love to have Casey featured in the book. So drop me a note if you want to add a foreword to the book.
Whoop, whoop.
Yay. Thanks,
I'll get
everyone.
ahold of you. All right.
Have a good night. Ciao.
Bye.